Making fun of someone with a disability is retarded.
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at a prototype, which I love doing. I love doing this. It's so much fun to come out here with something and show you something that's upcoming and that you can get in on, because this is already up for pre-order. We're looking at the Varga Knives Choctaw, and this is going to be quite a bit different than Varga Knives' previous releases, which were the VBRs. The VBR was an amazing design. I think it's kind of run its course at this point. Mark has been running that design for, I want to say, about 4 years now, maybe 3. And it was such an incredible design, something that a lot of us have fallen in love with. It was one of the best EDC knives available. But we've now seen several iterations of that with very minor changes, and I think it was definitely time to see a completely new, different design from Mark, and that's exactly what we've got here. This is going to be a really nice sheep's foot, and you're going to have a couple of choices within this. One, you can get into the Buttonlock, which you see right here. And this is a true Buttonlock, by the way. It is not a It is not a button-actuated liner lock or button-actuated compression lock. It's a true Buttonlock. But here's the thing. You've heard me talk for the last year or two about this new emergence of different styles of button locks that do actuate a liner lock or a compression lock, and those having an actual detent ball and feeling so much better than a standard button lock. That's because not all button locks are created equal, and for a number of years, companies were putting out button locks that were just kind of floppy and flaccid. This is not floppy. It is not flaccid. This thing rocks. You could choose either to flick it with the blade window with your finger or with your thumb. You can use the thumb studs in the exact same manner, which I have a hard time kind of getting to, but that's okay. Or you can simply release the lock and wrist flick it. Now, the other choice you're going to have on this is a bolster lock. So think of it as a frame lock that has this scale over on top of it, only exposing this much of the lock, the area of the bolster. Now, if you do the bolster lock variant, you're going to have all of these opening options that I just discussed with you. In addition to that, you're going to have a standard flipper tab. Yeah. So you're going to have 3 different ways of deployment if you go with the bolster lock. But I tell you this, if you like the security of a really strong button lock, but you've always wanted to have one that had a nice, snappy, quick action, you're going to enjoy this very, very much. Now let's break away from the lock conversation, because that's not the only thing about this knife that makes it radical and different from the VBR. The other thing is going to be the way that they have decided to do this diamond milled pattern in the carbon fiber. So you've got a nice texture to it. Now the diamonds are flat. They're not pyramids. They are flat diamond shapes. But it's got a nice amount of texture to it to give you a solid purchase without obviously feeling like it's tearing anything up. It's a really good looking way of doing it as well. It's not just plain carbon fiber. Not that there's anything wrong with plain carbon fiber, but I like having this texture in there. It's really, really cool. Now, there is one thing that you're probably not going to notice as you're looking at this, and I really want you to take a good look. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you some close-up shots. Do you see anything jumping out at you here that's different? That's an option on here that you weren't expecting? I'll go ahead and open the whole thing up, and we're going to get in super tight. I really like how this thing is shaped, by the way. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay. Did you see it? I don't think you did, because it was done so friggin' well that it took me a second to see it. And that was after Mark told me it existed. It took me a second to see it. This is actually a reversible pocket clip, and you have a filler tab right back here in the carbon fiber scale. It's almost imperceptible. You don't feel it. It's completely flush with the rest of the scale. And the way that the milled pattern is done, that's also the exact same. I mean, you can't tell it's there. And you almost don't see it. The light has to catch it just right, and you might see it a little bit. Outstanding work by Riot on this. For those that don't know, Varga Knives likes to use Riot as their OEM because of their quality control, their incredible finish work, and their attention to detail. Now, the similarities to the VBR. One, the fact that it's a bolstered knife. Very classy, very cool. Even on a tactical style knife, it adds a bit of class. I really like that Mark keeps doing this. It looks really good. The other thing that reminds me of the VBR, and another reason why I think this is bound to be a tremendous success for him, is the way that they have rounded off every area of the handle that your fingers and hand come into contact with. That was the reason why years ago I picked the VBR as my knife of the year that year, and why I said that it was going to be one of the biggest hits and most talked about knives of that time period. And it was for years. This shares in that same comfort and the same wonderful neutral ergonomics. It's really, really, really well done. Okay, now I'll give you the specs and all that kind of stuff that you're going to need out of this. And then I want to let you know what the changes are going to be from this prototype to the production knives that you can be expecting. So let me lay that down there. And let's talk about the specs. You're looking at an overall length of 8 inches with a blade that is 3.5 inches right there, 3.5 inches, perfect. Your weight's going to be 4.3 ounces. For my money, that's a great weight. Some will find it a little lightweight, some will find it a little bit heavy, depends on what you normally carry, but it is certainly well within a reasonable range for an EDC style knife, something that you're going to carry every single day, regardless of what you're doing, where you're going, how you're dressed, and what other things you're carrying. That's a good weight. You do have a detent in this, and I want to stress that to you right now. You have ceramic bearings and a ceramic bearing detent. All of the hardware on this knife is titanium. Of course, your frame is titanium. Your bolsters are titanium, all 6AL4V. Your sculpted pocket clip is titanium. And your blade stock thickness, nice and beefy at 157 thousandths of an inch thick. And I say beefy because we've seen a lot, 125, 129, 132, 134, a lot of very slim blades. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. They're very slicey. But this has a little more beef to it without being thick, without being overly beefy, without being what you would want to call overbuilt. But it is substantial. You'll feel it when that blade drops down when you release that lock. You'll feel it when it goes to lock up when you flick it open. You realize you have a strong, tough, manly blade. And your overall thickness is just over a half an inch, 550 thou thick from the clip to the presentation side scale. And your packaging is going to be the new pouches with the newly more accentuated logo. More accentuated logo. Same logo, but more accentuated. It's what I was trying to get out of my mouth, and I don't know why it was so difficult. Now, the changes between this prototype and what you can expect on your production knife. First off, the clip is going to be shorter than what we're seeing here. I'm going to throw in a little picture that Mark sent me in a direct message. This is Mark's photo, not mine. Please keep that in mind. The finger choil in the blade is going to be slightly larger. This one's a little bit cramped for me. I don't have fat fingers, but they're not skinny either. And it's just a little bit cramped, and I was a little afraid I was going to hit the heel of the edge there and cut myself. With the larger finger choil, it's going to be a little bit better. By the way, that detent, it's not strong, but it's really nice. So you're not ever going to be fighting to get the knife open. But it's never going to shake out on its own. You feel the resistance. You can build up on it. As you're going to flick it, you can feel that resistance. People are going to love that. The blade steel is going to be S90V. This right here on the prototype is marked M390. You're not getting M390. You're going way up into S90V. Extreme corrosion resistance and a phenomenal degree of edge retention. S90V is a super steel, and I've yet to see anybody be unhappy with a knife in that choice. And the back spacer is going to be a bit shorter. That's a shame. I like the bigger back spacer. That means the weight's going to be reduced slightly as well. So it's going to be a little bit shorter, and it's going to have jimping on the back spacer. And the spine of the blade is going to have jimping on it as well. I hope it's about 2/3 of the way up the blade window, because that's where my finger sits, or my thumb sits, when I'm choked up into the choil. If I'm back here, it's okay if it goes right up to the edge, but I would love to see it about 2/3 up the blade window would be fantastic. Now, it's a hard choice to say whether I would prefer the Buttonlock or the Bolsterlock, because the Buttonlock feels really good. It has a nice flickable action. Definitely better done than most other button locks. Definitely done better than almost every standard button lock that I have felt in the past few years outside of a Brian Ty Custom. And you know Varga is going to be bringing out value. This is going to be nowhere near the price of a Brian Ty Custom. This is going to be affordable for most everybody. I apologize. I don't know what the final retail is going to be, and I don't know what the pre-order price is. But I'm sure future me, editor me, is going to put that price somewhere up on the screen, because I'll have the opportunity to look and see. Well, I'll be honest with you. I already had the opportunity to look and see. Somehow I forgot. So that, my friends, is the Choctaw. Oops, I did nick myself a little bit on that edge heel. So yeah, good thing that the finger choil is going to be made a little bit bigger. Did I get blood all over Mark's knife? I did a little bit, just a little bit. I'll get some alcohol out and clean that off. Sorry about that, buddy. All right, so that is that. I want to make sure you guys got a chance to see it in a full presentation, not just a quickie little in and out, and not just a spec video. That's what you can expect from this knife. My goodness, now I am bleeding all over it. I'm sorry. Ay, ay, ay. That's terrible. All right, time to clean that up and get that back in the mail. All right, guys, thank you for joining me as always, and I'll see you on the next video.